इतना मत सोचो यार, स्पेस नहीं जाना है, ad बनाना है.
I'm hearing performance ads are dying, don't build a brand on that. Influencer marketing, so people think it's dying. People say UGC is the next big thing.
Not doing anything is also doing great work. Because if you're not doing anything, you're not disrupting. It's not like, अच्छा आप आए हो, ये लीजिए brief. अब जाइए, अब इस पे film लिख के लाइए. That is the worst thing you can do to the agency.
The AOR model is breaking. Advertising has gone from that one big idea to high-scale video production. A lot of opportunities, a lot of threats.
And I went through every piece of advertisement that NIVEA had ever made over the course of like 100 years. Trust me, it's the best encyclopedia and best teacher that you would realize the value of legacy brands, that it takes years to build that. Copy with pride, yeah, but let the other person know that you're copying with pride, because that person should feel that, oh my God, my work is so fantastic. So me, marketing actually is rocket science, and I'll tell you why.
Hey there. Welcome to Marketing Mavericks with Indiefolio. Today we have Shweta Dalal with us, who's the marketing director at NIVEA India. Shweta's career spans several years in the beauty and the wellness segments across both mass market and premium and luxury. She worked with Unilever for over a decade before this and was in L'Oreal as well. She's also an engineer turned marketeer. So we unpack this journey of hers, extract a lot of insights for marketeers and agency owners, and learn a lot about marketing. Thanks a lot for your time, Shweta, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've, worked with some of the biggest personal care and beauty brands out there, and a lot of your background and your career trajectory is something a lot of young marketeers would aspire to be at. So we would love to unpack this with you today. The first question I have for you is that you did engineering. You also worked as an engineer for a year, if I'm not wrong. Yes, and then you switched to marketing. Many people today are so scared to do what you did, right? Because firstly, they feel by the time you're 18 or 19 or in college, you need to have all the answers. And they may have an answer that what I just spent 4 years on, I don't like. But it's very hard for them to not do this because they feel I'll be 4 years, backwards compared to everybody else around me, and I'll waste 4 years. So I'd rather just shrug my shoulders, suck it up and work, right? So I'd love it if you can talk a little bit about what was going in your mind, what prompted you to do this career switch, and anybody who's stuck in the same position today, maybe they did engineering, maybe they did commerce.
Yeah.
Can you guide them as to why you should, follow your passion?
Kavan, I hadn't really thought of marketing as a career when I was young. My father thought of my career, a very typical Indian family. So I actually was supposed to study medicine. And it so happened that in my 12th grade, I had maths and bio both. And I actually secured a medical college, but it was dental. And I also secured an engineering college. And somewhere I was so naive and stupid, in hindsight, of course, stupid, that I believed dentistry is not the right thing to do. And I was like, why would I do dentistry? Why would I want to put my hands inside someone's mouth? Only later that I realized I would have made so much of money if I was ever doing dentistry today. But yeah. And hence I chose engineering because the choice was between being a dentist and an engineer. So I did my mechanical engineering from REC Allahabad. And I was lucky because I got placed from campus as a mechanical engineer. I was placed with Tata Motors. I thought maybe I've cracked it, in life. Like I'm an engineer. I'm going to Pune, the best city in the country. But unfortunately, the myth burst. And I think 6 months down the lane, when you wake up every morning and you wear a uniform and you go to a shop floor and you swipe your access card and 5 o'clock the bell rings and you're again back into your house and you're living that life, I think I realized that this is really not me. Because as a person, I think I'm a person who's always curious and I like to be challenged. What Tata offered me was consistency and almost a routine that I was following. I didn't feel like I was enjoying my work there at all. I wasn't doing justice to me being an engineer and being in a shop floor and really navigating my way around clutch and brake and stuff. So I think I would have made for a very bad employee if I stayed long term. So therefore I decided that this is clearly not my calling. And I was very fortunate that amongst this batch of graduate engineer trainees and a lot of people from my campuses, everybody I saw around was actually writing CAT exams. And that was the first time I was exposed to this term of CAT. So I started preparing for my MBA and I got lucky, and then of course B school happened. When I entered B school, again, I was not very clear what I'm going to do. All I knew was I wanted to study and do something beyond what I was doing. And that's when I guess I fell in love with the subject of marketing and Kotler and what my professors taught, and my career then followed. I got a summer internship with L'Oreal that brought me to Bombay. And then, yeah, it was just about the beginning of what I am today then.
Superb. I think it's a brilliant advice, right? I feel today is so much exposure you have that you can actually live a life of a person you aspire to be by just looking at YouTube videos. You mentioned L'Oreal, and everybody recommends do an internship and work with the brand afterwards. And I rarely see that come to play. You did it, right? You did what's recommended. So can you tell me a little bit about, if I am a young marketing grad and I want to work with a large company like that, what do I signal in my interview, in my resume, which will make me an attractive candidate for a brand like L'Oreal to, get me on board as an intern or maybe as a junior manager?
To be honest, there is no formula, but what I do believe is if you really have the desire in you to work, unless and until you show an interest, nobody will know that you're interested in that particular position or in that particular company. Right. So I always tell my friends and my team that never be afraid when somebody asks you to do something. I may not be ready for the position, but if somebody asks me that, would you like to be the CEO of, say, a NIVEA tomorrow? And I would be like, why not? I'd be delighted to. I mean, I may fail or I may take longer to get there, but do I aspire to be one? So therefore, I think one of the things is be brave. Don't hold back is the first advice I have. The other is, I think, if you're authentic and if you're truly interested in the role, you need to be very, very out there and authentic to express your interests, really what you bring to the table. I think that's what most companies and most brands really desire. You have to be extremely, extremely honest about what you really want to do. What is the value that you think you will add and bring to the table? And express your keen desire and interest in why. Is it the value of the company? Is it the quality of the work? Is it the learning that you want to bring on board? I think companies are interested in now taking diverse set of people. They are interested in, of course, bringing younger brains who are much more, agile and better ways of thinking. And also, I think LinkedIn works for people these days, yeah. And I really think that the kids know these days on how to approach and how to write to people. So they write amazing covering letters and they ping me on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, my advice is just be yourself, authentic, and be very honest. And if your story is true and authentic, trust me, you will be picked.
Another thing which a lot of people are confused about is what marketing really is, right? Because conventionally, you'd see marketeers make, advertisements with celebrities, and that's like the exciting creative part of things, jingles, slogans. And then if you dive deeper, if you look at what's hot today, it's strategy, data-driven marketing, analytics, etc., right? Which is a lot more analytical in that sense.
Yeah.
So people today are like, hey, if I'm in my 12th or if maybe I'm doing an MBA and I want to, let's say, specialize in something, is being creative more important as a marketer, or is it being more analytical? So what do you think, which skill set is it more lopsided on?
I think it's a combination of two. To be very honest, I think for me, marketing it's actually demand generation. You need to be able to create a demand for whether it's a product or a service or whatever that you're offering to the consumer. You're actually ending up doing that. Now, how you're generating the demand is by offering a product, a service, a communication in some form or the other. You're talking to a consumer. So marketing is a combination of actually both. It's analytics, but it's also creative judgment. And I think when there is a fine balance between the two is when the magic really happens. Because you may have all the AI tools and the analytics with you, but if you're unable to translate that analytics into something what is truly consumer insights, a pain point, a delight, a aha moment for the consumer, you will not be able to put forward a campaign that emotionally resonates with the consumer. And therefore, all amount of analytics and BCG and the reports that we generate will be of a waste. But at the same time, you may have created the best of the insight. And if you're not able to bring the flawless execution into market, then it's another failure too. So for me, I think it's always a perfect balance between the two, which is trying to make sure that you combine the logic and the magic together is when the real joy of marketing comes out.
When I'm usually deciding my first few jobs, like if I have a job offer from a company which if I'm not a customer of, right? Should I take it, or is it always better to be in a company who's doing products where I'm the customer of?
There is no right or a wrong answer, to be honest with this. Like I can give you an example of NIVEA. And I was working in HUL prior to this, and of course I'm exposed to the brands and I like it. But again, when NIVEA spoke to me, I resonated with NIVEA because it's a beautiful, it's India's number one trusted brand, right? And it's the moment NIVEA comes to your head, it's nostalgia. It's a great brand. Most of my people in my households have used this brand, and I know this brand. It's close to my heart. So it automatically becomes easier because you are a consumer, and it's easier for you to actually articulate and translate what your consumers also thinking. So that's one part of marketing. But having said that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't design and work and service for a brand that you may not have used but aspire to use. Now tomorrow, as long as I am able to serve that consumer, I'm able to understand that consumer, and I'm able to articulate the true consumer insight, I think it's absolutely fine. Unless you detest the category and you're like, you know what, I don't connect with this category, I don't get it, then I truly believe you will fail. And that's where you will do injustice to yourself, to the company, to the category. So I think it's important that one is you like and you understand. Number two is consumer understanding is the key. It's only about articulating and putting yourself in the place of the consumer and being able to do justice to their job.
Very well put. But it's so hard to actually understand the core insight and empathize with our customer. Even when brand managers are shifting from category A to category B, or they've just introduced themselves into a new company with a new set of rules and insights, they usually struggle. Within Unilever and your experience, you've shifted quite a lot from premium segments to mass market to various other categories, right? How does a marketer really understand the insight and understand a new brand? Do you have any best practices, guiding principles which have helped you?
As humans, we are all the same. It's generally the same things that excite us, motivate us, make us happy or make us sad. So fundamentally, I think that doesn't change. Of course, an understanding of the brand is much more relevant, and you need to know the root strengths of the brand, the core values of the brand. I mean, people take years and years of building a brand. And I'm going to quote you again, NIVEA, because I think NIVEA is a 100-year-old brand, right? There's a lot of legacy that goes behind this brand. You can't build a brand overnight and say, it's going to be blue in color and that's how it is. I think there have been mavericks and people who have worked consistently over the years to really build what NIVEA stands for. So therefore, I think one of the key reasons for success for any brand manager, I would say, is consistency is key. Never trash away any piece of work that your predecessors have done. Always give them the benefit of doubt. When you come in for a new job, don't always come in with the idea that, I'm going to change the world. Sometimes, this relentless keeda in us that tells us, hame sab badalna hai, is actually the worst keeda that we all have. Not doing anything is also doing great work. That's what my boss used to tell me. When I used to tell him, I'm so bored, I have no work. And he used to tell me, that's the best day ever. Because if you're not doing anything, that's also great for a brand because you're not disrupting. You don't necessarily need to do 20 things to make things work. Sometimes just doing what was working is also is a very important thing that pays back on brand building. So consistency is a very big and a key measure. And therefore, I think we all feel when we're changing categories and we're changing brand, oh my God, I went here, now I'm going to do this and I'm going to change this. And I think that for me is a big lesson learned, that take a pause, lock yourself. And this is one very big lesson my boss gave me once upon a time. And even when I came to NIVEA, actually, I applied this, which is I locked myself in a room for a day. And I went to what they call as the archive or the history room of NIVEA. And I went through every piece of advertisement that NIVEA had ever made, over the course of 100 years. And trust me, it's the best encyclopedia and your best teacher, because there is so much dope and information and knowledge there that you would realize the value of legacy brands then, that it takes years to build that. So therefore, don't ever trash what has been done in the past. Take it with a pinch of salt that, okay, it may be old school, but there is a reason for why it was done. Build over it. Don't just throw it away.
Like saying no to 90 things and doing those 5 things is the hard part to do, because coming up with a new idea every day is actually easy. It's really hard to say no to good ideas and do that one great idea.
Look at marketing, and to be very honest, Kavan, there will be 10 campaigns that fail and there'll be 1 or 2 that's successful. And pick any great examples. There are enough and more of the Coke campaigns, or I can even give you my NIVEA examples or brands that I've worked for in the past. We failed. And I can tell you honestly, I have failed. I have made campaigns that I'm ashamed of today, some of them, when I look back in history. And there are also some of the great ones that has made iconic landmark milestones for the brand because it's grown from there. But I think it is this journey of marketeers where we fail and we learn and then we move forward. But the urge of wanting to change for the heck of changing is the one thing that I really feel we must hold back, because change always comes at a cost. And I'm not saying don't change. We must, because that's the nature of human beings, right? We need to. It's always an improvement. But it always comes at a cost, and be very, very mindful of the cost that we are paying for the change that we bring in.
I wanted to ask you questions for 2 sets of people. One is a mature company or a company at scale, and then also startups, right? Because both marketing managers in large companies and founders or marketers doing a 0 to 1 tune into this podcast. If I'm a young company starting out, right, I'm hearing performance ads are dying, don't build a brand on that. Then influencer marketing is great, but now also people think it's dying. People say UGC is the next big thing. That's going to be very critical. There's a lot of confusion. If I am a young company, I have itna paisa, I can't do all of it. I can do maybe that one thing. And in your experience, right, what's a good framework to think about what channel to double down on? And if you have any definitive advice that, hey, do these two things, maybe there will be a good growth lever for you in marketing.
Whether it's a startup or a big company, the principles won't change. I have a friend who actually is a founder of a startup, and I'll name the brand. It's called The Whole Truth. He's a very good friend, and I'm always impressed with how Shashank talks, and with the passion that he talks about is. And I think I have seen him as a founder and as an entrepreneur. He was a colleague with me during the back old days of HUL. His fundamental was very clear that he needed to. It was very clear from the beginning what is the problem he's solving for. Who are we talking to? And once that fundamental issue is identified, the true consumer insight or your problem is identified, then it's about building that surround system on how you do it. He started with, it's as simple as he started with a blog. Imagine he spoke to 1,000 people with his blog story. He built a community initially, those 1,000, 2,000 people. And when we fell in love with the community is when he actually tested and piloted and learned from the community. And then gradually he scaled, and his business started on the ground principle of only and only talking the truthful story about his product, which is called The Whole Truth. And today the brand is an amazingly beautiful, it's a 5-year-old brand. Trust me, it's a brand not built in with the fundamentals of, I'm going to sell myself off in the next 5 years. I think it's a brand built for the next 100 years, because at the heart of the brand is the philosophy of the brand, which is nothing but the truth. And he bunks and debunks every myth that is there around the idea of health and healthy eating. The way his advertisement comes to people, his content, is all about that. So what I'm trying to arrive to, Kevin, is basically whether it's a startup or whether it's a big founded brand, as long as you're being true to the philosophy of the brand and you're serving a true fundamental consumer problem, I think the journey will fundamentally be the same. Of course, bigger brands have bigger reach and bigger ambitions and bigger targets. So therefore, you will use multimedia channels like a TV and a print and a radio and an outdoor and a digital. Whereas leaner startups, because these startups slow and then they gradually build up, of course, the cost of reaching a consumer is much cheaper when you do targeted. And thanks to digital, it's become so much better and easier to reach a particular cohort. So therefore, I think precision marketing, as we all call it, influencer marketing, these are great options now available, which was not there back in the years. So many brands that are now evolving and are growing are digital first brands, and they're doing fantastic. I mean, when I look at the US and I realized there's celebrities who've built many brands in the US. I know there was an amazing article in the newspaper in how India is failing to build celebrity brands, and there are many examples, right? K-beauty and many more I can say, vis-a-vis the scale at which celebrity brands in the US have done so well, whether it's Fenty or whether it's brands by Kim Kardashian or whether it's Selena Gomez doing beauty. And the US is a true example of how celebrities have leveraged their equity, have leveraged their values and brought it alive in their brand. I mean, look at Fenty Beauty today. It's so uniquely positioned on a true consumer insight that was available, that was yet to be tapped in the market like that in the US or the rest of the world. And hence, I mean, look at the size of the brand today and how beautifully it has evolved and scaled. I don't think so. The idea was that, let's make it digital first and then we'll scale it in Sephora. I don't think so. I think it started with a genuine understanding of where the opportunity lied. They truly got the consumer pulse, and then they launched the product, and there it became magical overnight.
I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot and just trying to kind of give you kind of extract an action-oriented insight, right? Because often startup founders think ki, chalo, story I have. Now, let's say I have 100 rupees. Will I get good ROI of those 100 rupees giving it to influencers, or will it be ads? I'm not putting you on the spot, but have you seen through metrics what genuinely works out?
It's a multimedia approach. Honestly speaking, one versus the other will never work. So what we do when we also do our media planning is always an integrated media approach, of course. And there are enough tools available nowadays, whether we call it CMM, MMM. It's called basically media mix modeling, where you learn as you move along that what is it that is giving you a higher ROI, because the only TV or only digital may not be a plan as well. Even on influencer marketing, I know that there is now a belief that influencers are no longer seen as authentic and they're not as higher ROI as they used to be, etc., etc. But they have their own role. I think when your brand needs to say a story, when your brands need to engage, when your brand needs to really build credibility, influencers certainly help you do that, right? Because a true consumer story is felt when somebody who's experienced the brand tells you. Because now I think in the noise of so many brands and so much of advertisement around us, we ourselves have become so discerning to these ads, right? Like you and I are skipping all the time because we are a multi-screen, multimedia approach. And we are like, this is all paid for. We don't believe in it. And I think At that point in time, does an influencer help? Of course, why not? I mean, if tomorrow you were to tell me your story, I want to hear your story because I believe you're being true about it. So therefore, I think on brands which are new and are wanting to really tell their story, will influencers help? Of course, it will help. And NIVEA uses influencers very actively, and I think it's really worked for us. To be very honest, I think talking to the Gen Z consumers, which are our core TG, explaining to them how our products work in a culture and an environment that they like is what really works with influencers. But having said that, do we not use TV or do we not use Meta? No, we do use Meta and TV as actively too. So it's truly a multimedia approach. But when you have limited pockets, I can tell you that TV is expensive. My view is always this: start small, scale it, make it big, and then go bigger. It's always a funnel. Don't ever go big and then, because you'll burn out too fast and you will not be able to sustain the business. So you really need to adopt a state, a city, a community, build it, test it, learn it, and then gradually scale up. Scaling is always easier. Pulling it back is what is going to be a big problem.
You said something which I truly believe in, and Y Combinator has a particular section by Sam Altman, who is now the founder of OpenAI, who speaks something very similar, that the biggest companies actually started very small.
Yeah.
They all were criticized that your TG is too small, but then they ended up kind of expanding. Be it a Facebook is the biggest example. They were a site for Harvard students only.
Yeah, absolutely,
and today,
right.
Billions of people use it. Because if you wanted to make a site for billions of people, nobody would care. But because you made it just for Harvard, that exclusivity and that care really got great engagement from everybody. At Indiefolio, we are a network of agency owners and freelancers. We are kind of going through a really interesting time as content folks. AI is disrupting everything. The AOR model is breaking. Advertising has gone from that one big idea to high scale video production. So a lot of opportunities, a lot of threats at the same point in time. You've worked with so many agency founders in your career. What's that one thing which separates a great agency from a good agency?
I think a great agency is actually a part of you. It's a part of the team. There is no agency. I think in the culture that at least I've worked for and work with, even continue to work even at NIVEA, is we don't consider agency an agency. They're actually a business partners. Yeah. So when we address them, we don't address them as agency. They're the same team. And I think once you are the same team, it makes a huge difference, because then they don't take the liability or the responsibility of saying, oh, brief aaya hai, so now we need to deliver on the brief. It's co-created. So the best agency partners are, one is their best friends and their business partners. Yeah. Number two is you co-create the brief. When you co-create the brief, then you know the problem we are addressing and you know what is it in the room that we're talking about. Because it's not like, acha, aap aaye ho, ye lijiye brief. Ab jaiye, ab is pe film likh ke laiye. That is the worst thing you can do to the agency. Because then, they feel like, acha, yaar, aaj client ne fir se ek brief diya hai, abhi dekhte hain, kuch likhte hain. That's how it works. The best briefs are written together. You co-create the brief together. So I have had the best output and the best fight, the worst fight, the best fight, and the best outputs when we have had WhatsApp group, by the way, with our agencies, and we used to discuss them on WhatsApp. Hey guys, I have this idea. Karte hain. And then we would make fun of each other and we'd like it. Okay, come on, let's jam on it. And of course, there is always a boundary and a line that creative doesn't let the client, which is me and my rest of the team, take, because beyond the point, we are so NASA people, sometimes we think so much logic. Creative sometimes has to be overtaken by magic, like I said, right? So sometimes you have to put the logic out of the window and they're like, itna mat socho yaar, space nahi jana hai, ad banana hai. So you take a leap of faith. You would have otherwise never seen the Volvo ad, right? Why would he do a split on a bus if there was only logic to it? But the reason that there was a logic and a magic is because it was meant to be. So I think you'll have to give them as much trust and faith that they are not going to make your brand die. But at the same time, because you're the custodian of the brand, you have to keep pulling them back. But to me, it's the best relationship that you can ever have. So I don't believe it's an agency. I believe they're partners.
Absolutely. Very, very well put. And I want to actually follow up on this. What happens often is there's a lot of push and pull between a marketeer and the agency rep.
Of course.
Marketeers say that the golden age of advertising is over. Because, pehle people used to really partner with me, but today they are just doing execution. The agency says that that's because, instead of doing 3 campaigns in 1 year, you do thousands of creatives and you give me 5 minutes to get a brief download on WhatsApp and you tell me to make something by EOD, right? When do I get time? And I empathize with the marketer also, because this landscape has changed.
Yeah.
While formats have increased into 10 and channels into 5, budgets and resources are the same, similar. So even they don't have enough time to get stuff done, right? So what's your advice to kind of, you know, solve this constant push and pull? How have you been, doing that with your partners and with your team?
The formula is just being on the same page. I see, at the end of the day, you do know the journey of the brand that you have planned for this year. Like, I do know that I have 4 innovations coming in NIVEA, and these are the broad calendar plans I know, right? I mean, not like every day I know this is happening, but I do know that quarter 1 and quarter 4 and quarter 3, these are basic big movements. I think what works is you must be as transparent and share as much visibility with your partners, because once you give them enough time to think, and I truly believe in spending enough quality time in developing creatives. This overnight magic can happen once or twice. Trust me, it's not sustainable. And my personal view is it's not sustainable. हम करते क्या है? We spend 6 weeks and 8 weeks designing a concept. उसके बाद 6 और हफ्ते टेस्ट करेंगे, और फिर उसके बाद अमेजिंग स्क्रिप्ट लिख के आएगा, एंड देन हम एजेंसी को बोलते हैं अच्छा 3 हफ्ते में शूट करो और फिल्म बनाओ और दे दो. लाइक 40 हफ्ते लगाए एक स्क्रिप्ट लिखने में, और हम उसको देते हैं 3 हफ्ते एक फिल्म बस बना के दे दो. इज सच अ रॉन्ग थिंग, बिकॉज द रियल क्राफ्ट्समैनशिप actually comes after the film. Because what is the role of a director, actually a good production house, is to elevate the script. Uska kaam ye thodi hai ki wo script ka action cut drama karke, he doesn't do that. He or she doesn't do that. So the craftsmanship, which is really elevating what was on the paper to an idea, is what takes time. And then you actually find the right talent, the right people, the right team to come together and create it, right? Which is a factor of time. So to me, engaging ahead of time, showing them the full visibility, giving them the picture, and trust me, transparency always helps. Telling them when you're doing a good job, and when you're doing bad, let's pull up together, co-owning success and failure. I think, and that's why at Cannes nowadays, you see agencies and clients represent together. It's not just that the agency is going to win the award. They go together because they are now in partners together. When FEs happen or when all the awards happen nowadays, I think agencies are as much interested as much as the clients are in receiving the award. So therefore, as the lines are getting blurred, even the relationship is becoming thicker. I would actually believe that, consistently bigger brands, bigger companies stick to the same partners because they are now in it together. They want to make it work.
Awesome. I think you sound like the perfect client.
It's not that easy. Push and pull will still continue though.
No, but thank you so much. I think really, really sound advice for a lot of agency owners. This brings us to the end as a parting thought. I'd love for you to answer this, where many people who tune in, they want to have a career like you. They want to be a marketing leader one day. What's your advice to them? What should they do now?
Simple. I mean, one is, what has helped me is me being authentic and being me, which is try and be as transparent and as authentic you are. I think empathy is something that really helps in marketing. Unless and until you are able to empathize with your consumer, you will not be able to do justice. I think curiosity is the best thing that a marketer can ever have. Always be inspired by what is happening inside and outside. Keep an eye that always looks inwards and outwards, because you never know what can inspire you. I am a firm believer that copying is the best form of flattery, and therefore copy with pride, yeah, but let the other person know that you're copying with pride, because that person should feel that, oh my God, my work was so fantastic. So always keep an eye open. And the last one I would say is, for me, marketing actually is rocket science. And I'll tell you why. Because for all this life, I've been marketing soaps and creams and stuff. And, when you're buying a soap or when you're buying a 5 rupee cream or a 10 rupee cream, trust me, the consumer is not even spending 0.001% of their time. We believe कि वो इतना सोच रहा है, but actually उसकी जिंदगी में he or she spent 0.001% of time considering your product. So imagine the role that you're playing to influence her mind to buy your product at that point in time. And therefore I call it rocket science, because it is truly the rocket science, because you're impacting all the small piece of marketing, which is your product, the click of the cap, the texture of the product, the smell of the product, how it felt, what the ad jingle said, so many things are going that could have just worked for her at that point. Even the pricing or the pack, the way it looks in the shelf. So it is truly rocket science, and hence you should have the capacity or the capability in you to solve a complex problem and simplify and make it a simple one. I think that's the key to a good marketer. Look at everything possible, which is so super complex and looks like a tangle of too many things. But eventually you should be able to sit down, filter it, and make it simplified so that somebody can understand when you're making a brief or you're writing or talking to them. So these are some of the fundamentals.
Awesome. That's a great note to end the podcast on. Thank you so much, Shweta. I hope you had a good time.
Yes, I did. And thank you so much for this conversation. It was lovely talking to you, jogging nostalgia and, talking about my old work and, of course, the new interesting one that I'm doing now. But really, thank you. And I appreciate all the time.
It was a pleasure. And, for everybody who's tuned in so far, thank you so much. If you'd like to hear another marketing leader very soon, please like, share, and subscribe. A new episode will come out very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.